Hey folks, walk with me. I was thinking about ways in which people can consider starting to work with a traumatic past, whether that's a singular wound. We talked relatively recently in the playlist that trauma isn't an event. It is what you're left with. It is the opened wound that never gets processed or healed. There's a lot of events that are the same person to person, and some are traumatized and some are not. That is some people's resources and capacity and ability to process at the time or soon thereafter and heal and close that wound, versus other people's inability to. Lack of resources, lack of surrounding support structure, so on and so forth, that just don't allow that processing to happen. And so it then becomes trauma because it remains open on the inside. So, setting that aside, there's a whole other video on that you can watch. First, starting to work with it, the thing that I feel that at least I found most helpful, that I think would probably resonate with a lot of people, and it's free. It's available on YouTube. You're already here, obviously, right? I would say look up a couple of different people. My number one go-to, the one that I felt was really sort of breakthrough for me, was a guy. So if you're having a hard time spelling his name, just Google author of the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Okay? The idea of the body keeps the score is if you're carrying around trauma and it goes unprocessed and it lingers a long time in the body, that you start to represent that and feel it and experience it through your body. But the author, his name is Bessel van der Kolk. I think he's Dutch. And I think it's Bessel space VAN space DER space KOLK. Author of The Body Keeps the Score. He has a ton of talks, interviews on YouTube, and you can just click through and find one that feels like a good pace and a good setup and a good setting within the first few minutes, right? I feel like there's certain interviews or talks that he does that I click on it, and within the first couple of minutes I'm like, there's probably a better version of this. And then some I click on and it's a speech or it's an interview and it gets started in the first couple of minutes. I'm like, oh, this is awesome, right? It's a great setting, great interviewer, whatever it is that creates the difference there. And it's the same person essentially putting out the same information. But yeah, he has enough where you can definitely just look around and find. And he will talk about tons of different ways in which to consider starting to work with trauma. And different things work for different people. And so having somebody who's going to provide you, not in an overwhelming way, but just in a resources way, here's 5 different ways that you can start. Don't start with all 5. Start with one of them. See what it does, if it does anything, right? Maybe it does nothing and you move on to something else. Maybe it does a little bit of something, but say not enough, or you sort of quickly hit the end point with it, and then you can move on to the next thing. But he's going to talk about things like yoga. He's going to talk about singing, like group singing, like chorus singing. He's going to talk about EMDR. He's going to talk about MDMA, like a wide range of things that you can sort of organize in your head, or at least that's what I did, and just started trying things and just made note of what, trying to give everything a fair shot, right? Not just a one and done or a two and done. Give everything a fair swing. See if it does anything. If it doesn't, set it aside, move on to the next thing. And if it does do something, stick with it for as long as it's doing something. Make note of what it's doing. Create a dialogue and a storyline there of what's happening and how you're experiencing it and what changes it's creating for you, how it is helping you process the trauma, how it's helping your body in its traumatized state. And then, yeah, just work through those things. That would be my number one suggestion. Now, if you try Bessel van der Kolk and it's not really your cup of tea, another person who seems very good, but is definitely a bit different, Gabor Mate, Gabor, last name Mate. He's getting a lot of interviews out there recently, and many very, very good, very lengthy, very in-depth, very informative interviews. And so he might sort of just strike you as, you might just connect with him more, and he may say things in a different way that just make you go, oh, okay, now that makes sense. And he has a slew of books out there as well on trauma. Another one, I hope I'm not going to mess this up. I think his name is Peter Levine. Peter Levine, much more like, he's a very, well, I guess Bessel and Gabor are very gentle in their sort of speech and speaking and whatnot. But Peter Levine, he comes across as sort of on an additional level, if you will. He's very empathetic seeming, very, like empathy forward, very soft-spoken, and he's another one. He has a ton of interviews out there, decades-long history in the research and integration space, and he may jive with you better. But those are the top 3 that I have. There's a few more out there. If you want a part 2 on this, let me know in the comments, and I can try to put some more folks on a list. I mean, there's also like ancillary, like there's folks that do work in the space that they talk about of places to start. Like we talked about, like the yoga, like there's particular like trauma-based yoga healing approaches. There's same thing with like mindfulness and meditation and choral pursuits, however you want to however you would say that. But yeah, if you want sort of a part 2 on some other players in the space to look up, and or people who are putting out good material on those first steps, let me know, and I can. These are just off the top of my head because they're very top of mind, because I found them to be the most influential and impactful, and sort of commit to memory because of that reason. But there's definitely others that I came across that, because I had kind of found a home, if you will, with Bessel van der Kolk, I didn't feel the need to continue to explore extensively, but it's out there. So that's my long spiel on, if you want a part 2, let me know. All right, folks, well, we're coming up on 9 minutes here. If you walked with me, if you didn't, I appreciate you watching this far, and as always, I will see you in the next video.